I don't want money. I just need 1 minute with Daniel Brooks. I need to speak with him.
Mr. Brooks doesn't know you. Leave!
Please. I just need to speak with him. It is important. No!
The security guard shoved the young homeless woman down the marble steps of the Grand Legacy Hotel. She stumbled, barely catching herself before falling face first onto the rain-soaked pavement. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Luxury cars continued pulling up to the entrance as wealthy guests walked past without slowing down. One woman adjusted her diamond necklace and whispered to her husband, "Every charity event attracts someone looking for a handout." Another guest pulled out his phone and began recording. "She's about to go viral." The homeless woman slowly pushed herself back to her feet. Her jeans were torn at the knees. Rain clung to her curls. The backpack on her shoulder looked older than anything inside the five-star hotel. Tears burned in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "I don't want money," she said, her voice shaking. "I just need 1 minute with Daniel Brooks." The older security guard grabbed her arm again. "Mr. Brooks doesn't know you." "He will." "No, he won't. You don't understand." "I understand enough. Now leave before I have you arrested." As he pulled her toward the sidewalk, the sleeve of her hoodie caught on his watch and ripped slightly. A gold bracelet slipped into view. Its tiny oak tree charm glistened beneath the hotel lights. At that exact moment, a black Rolls-Royce Phantom stopped at the entrance. The driver hurried to open the rear door. Daniel Brooks stepped out wearing a tailored black tuxedo. The billionaire CEO smiled for the cameras as reporters called his name. Then, his eyes drifted toward the commotion on the steps. Toward the young woman. Toward the bracelet. His smile vanished. The color drained from his face. His briefcase slipped from his hand and crashed onto the marble. For a long moment, he couldn't breathe. He knew that bracelet. 20 years ago, he had fastened it around the wrist of the only woman he had ever planned to marry. There had never been another like it. His voice trembled. "Naomi." The young woman looked at him with tear-filled eyes. Slowly, she reached into her backpack and pulled out a sealed envelope. "I promised her I'd put this in your hands," she said. "She told me you'd recognize the bracelet." She paused. "But she wasn't sure you'd recognize the truth." "Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your city. And if you love emotional stories filled with mystery, redemption, and unforgettable twists, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next." The rain fell softly against the marble steps. No one spoke. The laughter that had filled the entrance moments earlier had vanished. Daniel Brooks stood frozen, his eyes fixed on the bracelet around the young woman's wrist. It couldn't be. The tiny oak tree charm, the 3 emerald leaves, even the faint scratch near the clasp. His chest tightened. He remembered that scratch. Not because it ruined the bracelet, but because it made Naomi laugh. "Now it's perfect," she had teased. "Anything worth keeping will collect a few scars." Daniel blinked, forcing the memory away. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Where did you get that bracelet?" The young woman looked at him for a long moment. She wasn't angry. She wasn't afraid. She looked tired. As if life had spent years testing her, yet somehow failed to break her. Finally she spoke. "From the woman you stopped looking for." Daniel's breathing caught. "The woman who never stopped loving you." The words hit him harder than a punch. His face lost all color. Around them, guests exchanged confused glances. One reporter lowered his camera. Even the security guards stood silently, unsure whether to intervene. Daniel took one slow step toward her. "What did you say?" Instead of answering, the young woman carefully slipped off her backpack. Its fabric was faded. One zipper had been repaired with a safety pin. She unzipped the largest pocket and pulled out a cream-colored envelope, protected inside a clear plastic sleeve to keep it dry. She held it with both hands almost reverently. "I promised I would never let anyone else open it." She extended it toward him. "It's yours." Daniel stared at the handwriting before he touched the envelope. His heart nearly stopped. He knew those graceful loops. He had watched those hands fill birthday cards, grocery lists, and little notes tucked into his briefcase before work. Naomi. There was no mistaking her handwriting. His fingers trembled as he accepted the envelope. For a moment, the hotel disappeared. The flashing cameras disappeared. The voices disappeared. There was only the envelope. And 20 years of unanswered questions. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. "My name is Maya Carter." "And Naomi gave you this?" Maya nodded. 18 months before she passed away. Daniel looked up sharply. "Passed away?" Maya lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry. She wanted to tell you herself." The words shattered something inside him. He had spent 20 years convincing himself he no longer cared where Naomi was. That lie collapsed in a single heartbeat. His eyes filled with tears he refused to let fall. Very carefully he slid a finger beneath the seal. Just as the envelope began to open. "Daniel." The voice came from behind him. Confident. Warm. Familiar. Daniel turned. Richard Kane hurried across the entrance with an easy smile, shaking hands with donors as he approached. "There you are," Richard said with a laugh. "The mayor's waiting for you inside." Then his eyes landed on the envelope. For the briefest moment, his smile disappeared. It was gone almost instantly. So quickly that no one else noticed. No one, except Maya. She watched Richard carefully. Then she looked at Daniel. In a quiet voice that only he could hear, she said, "Don't let him read it first." Daniel looked down at the envelope in his hands. His fingers refused to move. For 20 years he had imagined what he would say if he ever saw Naomi again. Now all that remained of her was a single letter. Richard stepped closer, his voice calm. "Daniel, is everything okay?" Daniel didn't answer. His eyes never left the handwriting. Richard glanced at the envelope. "Who sent that?" Before Daniel could speak, Maya answered. "Naomi." Richard's smile froze. Only for a heartbeat. Then it returned. "Naomi?" he said with a puzzled laugh. "That's impossible." Maya looked him straight in the eye. "Is it?" Richard ignored her and turned back to Daniel. "Look, we have donors, reporters, and city officials waiting inside. Whatever this is, it can wait." "It waited 20 years already," Daniel replied quietly. "It can wait another hour." Richard's expression tightened. "You don't even know what's inside." "No," Daniel said. "But I'm about to." He carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a single folded sheet of paper. Nothing else. Daniel unfolded it. His eyes moved across the first line. Then he stopped breathing. "My dearest Daniel, if this letter has reached you, then someone finally kept the promise I couldn't." His vision blurred. He continued reading. "Before you believe anything else, believe this. I never betrayed you. I never stopped loving you." Daniel's hand began to shake. Richard shifted uneasily. "What does it say?" Daniel didn't answer. He kept reading. "Someone you trust made sure every letter I wrote disappeared before it reached you." Daniel slowly lowered the page. His heart pounded. He looked at Maya. "She wrote more than one letter?" Maya nodded. "Dozens." His face went pale. "I never received a single one." "I know." "She cried every time one came back unopened." Daniel closed his eyes. 20 years. 20 years believing Naomi had walked away without a word. 20 years believing she had chosen silence. And all along, she had been trying to reach him. He opened the letter again. At the bottom of the page, Naomi had written one final sentence. "If you're reading this, don't ask who lied to us. Ask who benefited from our separation." Daniel read the line twice. Then a third time. Slowly, he raised his head. His eyes met Richard's. For the first time in 20 years, a question entered his mind that had never existed before. What if Naomi hadn't lied? Richard forced a smile. "What is it?" Daniel folded the letter carefully. His voice was calm. Too calm. "I think we need to talk." Richard smiled. "Of course." Daniel looked at Maya. "You too." The three of them walked toward the private executive lounge. None of them noticed the young hotel photographer standing near the entrance. He had captured every second of the confrontation. Especially the moment Richard saw Naomi's letter. And the fear that flashed across his face. The executive lounge overlooked the glittering ballroom below. Inside it was silent. Daniel placed Naomi's letter on the table but didn't sit. He couldn't. His mind kept replaying one sentence. "Someone you trust made sure every letter I wrote disappeared before it reached you." He looked at Richard. "You knew Naomi." Richard gave a small nod. "Of course I did. You also knew she was trying to contact me after she left." Richard frowned. I assumed she wanted nothing to do with you. So you never heard from her? No. Never. Maya finally spoke. That's strange. Richard turned to her. What's strange? Naomi told me there was only one person outside her family who knew where she was living. Richard's face remained calm. And who was that? You. Daniel looked at Richard. Richard let out a short laugh. That's ridiculous. I hadn't seen Naomi in years. Maya slowly unzipped her backpack. I thought you'd say that. She pulled out a small photograph and laid it on the table. Daniel picked it up. His heart skipped. It showed Naomi standing outside a modest brick house, smiling despite looking tired. Standing beside her, Richard. His hand rested casually on the gate. On the back of the photograph was a date. 9 years ago. Daniel looked up. You told me you hadn't seen her. Richard glanced at the picture. His expression barely changed. I forgot about that. You forgot? Daniel asked. It was a chance meeting. She asked for help, but she refused it before I could do anything. Maya shook her head. That's not what she told me. Richard's eyes narrowed. And what exactly did she tell you? She said you begged her not to come back. The room fell silent. Daniel's gaze shifted slowly toward Richard. Richard sighed. Fine. She did come to see me. I was trying to protect Daniel. Protect me from what? From reopening old wounds. Daniel stared at him. That wasn't your decision to make. Richard spread his hands. You were finally moving on. You had rebuilt your life. I didn't want her to hurt you again. Hurt me? Maya interrupted. Or expose you? Richard's jaw tightened. I've had enough of these accusations. He stood. If you're going to believe a stranger over someone who's stood beside you for 20 years, then maybe I should leave. Daniel's voice stopped him before he reached the door. Sit down. Richard froze. For the first time, Daniel wasn't asking. He was giving an order. Slowly Richard turned back. Daniel picked up Naomi's letter again. There was one line I skipped. He unfolded the paper. His eyes settled on the final paragraph. Then he read it aloud. Daniel, if Richard is still beside you when you read this, don't accuse him immediately. People like him don't panic when they're cornered. They panic when they realize you no longer believe them. Watch his eyes. They'll tell you the truth before his mouth ever does. The room became so quiet that the ticking wall clock sounded deafening. Daniel lowered the letter. He looked straight at Richard. For several seconds, neither man spoke. Then Daniel noticed it. Richard wasn't looking at him. He was staring at the letter. Not with sadness. Not with regret. With fear. Real fear. Daniel folded the letter carefully and slipped it into the inside pocket of his jacket. Then he took a slow step toward Richard. His voice was calm. There's one question I've wanted answered for 20 years. Richard swallowed. Daniel looked him straight in the eyes. Why were you so determined to keep Naomi away from me? Richard opened his mouth to answer. A sharp knock echoed at the door. 3 quick knocks. Daniel opened it. Detective Marcus Hayes stood outside. His expression was serious. Mr. Brooks. He looked briefly at Richard before returning his attention to Daniel. We've just found something. What is it? Hayes took a slow breath. It's about Naomi. What we discovered changes everything. Daniel opened the door. Detective Marcus Hayes stood in the hallway, rainwater still dripping from the shoulders of his coat. Mr. Brooks, he said quietly, may I have a word? Daniel glanced back at Richard. It concerns Naomi, Hayes added. Daniel stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind him. What happened? Hayes held out a thin brown file. I didn't come here because of Miss Carter. I came because of this. Daniel opened the file. Inside was an old hospital record. The paper had yellowed with age. Across the top was a name he hadn't seen in years. Naomi Bennett. His heart skipped. Where did you get this? It was found in a storage unit that was being cleared this morning. Daniel looked confused. What does it have to do with me? Hayes pointed to the last page. Read the emergency contact. Daniel's eyes moved slowly across the page. Then they stopped. Emergency contact. Daniel Brooks. His breathing became uneven. But, he whispered. She disappeared. Hayes shook his head. No. She was admitted to St. Anne's Medical Center 11 years ago. Daniel stared at him. She was in Atlanta? Yes. And according to hospital records. Hayes paused. They called the emergency contact 3 times. Daniel looked back at the paper. No one called me. They did. Hayes removed another document. This is the call log. Daniel's hands trembled as he read it. 3 outgoing calls. Same day. Same number. His office number. Hayes spoke carefully. Every call was answered. Daniel frowned. I never spoke to them. Hayes nodded. That's exactly the problem. Daniel slowly lifted his head. If I didn't answer. Who did? Hayes looked toward the closed lounge door. His voice dropped. The person listed as your executive assistant at the time. Daniel searched the document. Then he saw the signature authorizing the message. Received by Richard Kane. Everything inside him went still. Richard hadn't just hidden letters. He had intercepted the hospital's calls. Daniel leaned against the wall. He felt sick. 11 years ago, Naomi had been alone in a hospital bed, believing he had ignored her, while he sat less than 20 miles away, completely unaware she had reached out. A tear rolled down his cheek. He didn't wipe it away. Hayes spoke softly. There's something else. Daniel closed his eyes. I don't know if I can take another surprise. Hayes handed him a small clear evidence bag. Inside was a silver key. Attached to it was a faded paper tag. Written in Naomi's handwriting were 5 words. For our dream house. Daniel's knees nearly gave way. He recognized the key instantly. Years ago, before everything fell apart, he and Naomi had bought a tiny lakeside cabin. They planned to renovate it after they got married. They called it our forever home. Daniel looked at Hayes, barely able to speak. The cabin. Hayes nodded. It was never sold. Daniel's eyes filled again. All these years, he believed Naomi had abandoned every dream they built together. He said, she had kept the key. She had kept the promise. And somehow, she had never stopped believing that one day, he would find his way back. Daniel closed his hand around the old silver key. For a moment he couldn't speak. He remembered the afternoon he and Naomi had found the cabin. It wasn't grand. It wasn't expensive. The paint was peeling and the porch leaned slightly to one side. Naomi had laughed as she spun across the creaking wooden floor. We'll fix it together, she'd said. Daniel smiled. It'll take months. She slipped her hand into his. Then we'll have months together. The memory hit him so hard he had to steady himself against the wall. Detective Hayes spoke gently. The cabin is still registered in both your names. Daniel looked up in disbelief. I thought she sold it. Hayes shook his head. She paid the property taxes every single year. Daniel closed his eyes. Even after everything, she never let it go. Back inside the executive lounge, Richard glanced at his watch for the 3rd time. His foot tapped nervously against the floor. Maya noticed. You're worried, she said quietly. Richard forced a smile. I'm wondering why a detective needs so much time. No, Maya replied. You're wondering what Daniel knows. Richard's smile faded. You think you've got me all figured out? I think you're afraid. Richard stepped closer. You don't know anything about me. I know one thing. And what's that? You've spent years trying to erase a woman who isn't here to defend herself. Before Richard could answer, the door opened. Daniel walked back in. His eyes were red. But there was something different about him now. The confusion was gone. In its place was quiet determination. Richard stood. Everything all right? Daniel didn't answer immediately. He walked to the table and picked up Naomi's letter. Then he looked at Richard. Did you ever visit Naomi after she left? Richard hesitated for the smallest fraction of a second. No. Daniel nodded slowly. So that's your answer. It is. Daniel reached into his pocket and placed the silver key on the table. Richard's eyes locked onto it. For just a moment, his face lost every trace of color. Daniel saw it. Maya saw it. Richard quickly looked away. What's that? He asked. Daniel's voice was calm. The key to the cabin Naomi never sold. Silence. You told me she sold everything. Richard swallowed. That's what I was told. No. Daniel took another step forward. That's what you told me. The room felt smaller. Richard opened his mouth to explain. But Daniel raised a hand. No more explanations. No more assumptions. I'm done believing what other people told me about the woman I loved. Those words struck Maya deeply. She smiled through tears. For the first time that night, Daniel wasn't defending his past. He was fighting for it. Then Maya slowly reached into her backpack. I didn't want to show you this until I knew you were ready. She removed a small velvet pouch. It was a simple gold engagement ring. Daniel froze. It was the ring he had placed on Naomi's finger the night he asked her to marry him. His hands trembled as he picked it up. On the inside of the band the engraving was still there. Forever starts with us. Maya's voice broke. She wore it every day. Daniel looked at her, tears filling his eyes. Until... Maya nodded. Until the day she died. The room fell silent. Richard lowered his head. Not in grief. In defeat. Because at that moment he realized something. No forged letter. No stolen phone call. Could ever compete with one simple truth. Naomi had never stopped loving Daniel Brooks. Daniel couldn't take his eyes off the engagement ring. The words engraved inside it blurred through his tears. Forever starts with us. He remembered the night he slipped it onto Naomi's finger. She hadn't looked at the ring. She had looked at him. Then she laughed and said, "If we ever stop choosing each other, this ring won't mean a thing." Daniel had smiled. "Then I'll keep choosing you." The memory shattered him. He closed his hand around the ring. "I broke that promise," he whispered. "No," Maya said gently. "You didn't. You were never given the chance." Daniel looked at her. "What do you mean?" Maya reached into her backpack one last time. "This is why Naomi made me promise to find you." She carefully unfolded a small worn piece of paper. It wasn't a letter. It was a calendar page. One date had been circled in blue ink. October 21st. Daniel frowned. "Our wedding day." Maya nodded. "Look closer." Beneath the date Naomi had written a single sentence. "I'll wait until sunset. If he doesn't come I'll know he never received my message." Daniel felt the room spin. "Wait," he whispered. "She waited for me?" Maya nodded, tears filling her eyes. "She went to the little chapel where you were supposed to get married." Daniel's breathing became uneven. "She arrived before sunrise. She wore her wedding dress. She sat on the front steps. And waited." Richard slowly lowered his head. Daniel never looked at him. Maya continued. "She stayed there all day. Every time a car turned the corner. She stood up because she thought it was you." Daniel covered his mouth. "No." At sunset. Maya's voice cracked. She took off her veil, folded it into a small box and walked away. She never went back. A tear rolled down Daniel's face. Then another. Then another. He wasn't crying because Naomi had left. He was crying because he never had. He had been there. Waiting. Believing. Hoping. While he sat alone in another church. Holding a letter Richard had handed him. A letter that claimed Naomi had run away with another man. Daniel slowly turned toward Richard. His eyes were filled with pain. Not anger. Pain. "You watched me bury the woman I loved." His voice trembled. "While she was waiting for me." Richard finally spoke. "I thought I was protecting you." Daniel stared at him in disbelief. "Protecting me? You stole 10 years of my life. You stole hers. You stole every chance we had to fix what wasn't broken." Richard looked away. "I loved the company." Daniel shook his head. "No. You loved control." Silence filled the room. Then Maya quietly reached into her backpack again. There was one more thing. Daniel looked at her. She placed a small white envelope in his hands. Across the front Naomi had written, "Open this only after you know I never stopped waiting." Daniel closed his eyes. His hands trembled. He wasn't ready. But for the first time in 20 years, he wasn't afraid of the truth anymore. Daniel looked at the envelope in his hands. The room was silent. Even Richard said nothing. Slowly Daniel broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper neatly folded. He unfolded it carefully. At the top, in Naomi's familiar handwriting, were the words, "My forever love." Daniel smiled through his tears. No one had called him that in 20 years. He began to read. If you've reached this letter, then you've already discovered the greatest truth. I never stopped loving you. His vision blurred. He wiped his eyes and continued. Please don't waste another day asking what we could have been. Life has already taken too much from both of us. Daniel swallowed hard. For years I prayed that you would hate me. I thought hatred would be easier for you than wondering where I had gone. But every birthday, every Christmas, every October 21st, I wished you happiness even if it was with someone else. Maya quietly lowered her head. She had heard Naomi write those words. She remembered the tears that stained the paper. Daniel continued reading. The bracelet was never valuable because it was made of gold. It became valuable the day you fastened it around my wrist and told me I would never have to face the world alone. Daniel closed his eyes. He remembered saying those exact words. Naomi's letter continued. After you were gone, there were days I had nothing except that bracelet. Whenever I wanted to give up, I looked at it and remembered there was once a man who loved me with his whole heart. That memory kept me alive longer than you will ever know. Daniel couldn't hold back anymore. A tear landed on the letter. Then another. Maya quietly handed him a handkerchief. He nodded his thanks without looking up. The final paragraph was shorter, but it carried more weight than everything before it. I have only one last request. Daniel took a deep breath. Please don't spend the rest of your life searching for justice for me. Spend it becoming the man we dreamed the world needed. Build the homes we talked about. Protect people who have no one to speak for them. And if Maya ever finds you, don't love her because of me. Help her because she's family to my heart. Daniel's shoulders shook. At the very bottom of the page, Naomi had written one final sentence. I'll be waiting where broken hearts never have to say goodbye. Daniel lowered the letter. For several moments, no one spoke. Richard stared at the floor. His face was pale. Daniel finally looked at him. There was no hatred in his eyes. Only sadness. You know what hurts the most? Richard said nothing. I lost the woman I loved. He paused. But you? He looked directly at Richard. Lost the ability to tell the truth. Richard slowly sank into a chair. For the first time in years, he had no excuse. No explanation. No why. Only silence. Detective Hayes stepped forward. Richard Kane. He removed a pair of handcuffs. You're under arrest. Richard didn't resist. As the detectives led him toward the door, he stopped. Without turning around, he spoke quietly. I never thought she'd keep waiting. Daniel's answer came without hesitation. She wasn't waiting for me. Richard frowned. Daniel looked at Naomi's letter. She was waiting for the truth. The door closed behind Richard. For the first time in 20 years, the room felt peaceful. Daniel folded Naomi's letter with the same care she had used when writing it. Then he turned to Maya. You've carried this burden alone for far too long. Maya looked at him. What happens now? Daniel smiled gently. Now, we keep the promise she left for both of us. 3 months later, the marble steps of the Grand Legacy Hotel looked exactly as they had on the night everything changed. Only this time, there were no security guards dragging anyone away. No laughter. No phones recording someone's humiliation. Instead, television cameras lined the entrance. Reporters filled the sidewalk. A large banner hung above the doors. Brooks Foundation announces the Naomi Bennett Housing Initiative. Daniel stood behind the podium, dressed in a simple navy suit. He looked at the crowd before speaking. I've stood on these steps many times. But the most important day of my life wasn't when I signed a billion-dollar contract. It wasn't when I became CEO. It was the night a young woman had the courage to walk up these steps carrying nothing but a backpack, a bracelet, and the truth. The cameras turned toward Maya. She sat in the front row wearing a simple blue dress. She looked nothing like the frightened young woman who had stood outside these same doors. She smiled through tears. Daniel continued. For years I believed success was measured by the buildings we built. I was wrong. It's measured by the lives we protect. He paused. My greatest regret isn't losing the woman I loved. It's allowing lies to keep us apart for 20 years. I can't change the past. But I can choose what I do with tomorrow. The audience fell silent. Daniel stepped away from the podium. A staff member brought out a small wooden display case. It rested the gold bracelet. Daniel picked it up carefully. He walked down the steps until he stood in front of Maya. The same steps where security had once thrown her onto the pavement. He smiled. The night I placed this bracelet on Naomi's wrist, I promised she would never have to face the world alone. He looked into Maya's eyes. She kept that promise. She carried hope when I had none. She trusted you with the truth. And because of your courage, I finally found my way home. Very gently, he fastened the bracelet around Maya's wrist. The crowd applauded, but Maya barely heard them. Tears rolled freely down her face. I don't deserve this, she whispered. Daniel smiled warmly. Neither did the woman who wore it before you. But she spent her life giving hope to other people. He gently squeezed Maya's hand. So now, it's your turn. Maya threw her arms around him. For the first time since Naomi's death, neither of them felt alone. A soft breeze swept across the hotel entrance. Daniel looked toward the sky. Almost instinctively he smiled. In his heart he could hear Naomi's voice. See, love always finds its way back. He whispered the words she had once spoken to him beneath an old oak tree many years ago. I'll keep choosing you. Not with grief. Not with regret. But by living the life they had dreamed of together. The cameras flashed. The applause grew louder. And somewhere beyond the noise, it felt as though one broken promise had finally been healed. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Until next time, take care of yourself and never forget your true worth.